And so today I want to talk to you a little bit about film contract basics. Well, first of all, it's useful to understand what is a contract. A contract is an agreement between two or more parties by the consequence of which there are duties and rights. I could also say the contract is the meeting of two minds that agree upon certain terms and conditions of performances. But just to make things easy, let's say that a contract is any agreement by the consequence of which two or more parties have to perform based on what they have established. A duty to perform against a duty to pay or to do or not to do something. In fact, we can say that a contract is binding because it contains these ties, the ties between two or more parties. The origin of the contract in Latin is obligation, ob towards ligatio, which means a tie, a legacy. And it is a relation established by an agreement by the means of which parties have to do or not to do something. Let's make a very easy definition of a contract. A contract usually can be also in oral form, but it's always best, especially when we're dealing with intellectual property and copyright, it needs to be in writing. It contains duties, rights, and it contains liabilities. Now, a contract, in order to be binding, enforceable, has to meet some formal requirements, such as the identification of the parties, the identification of the subject matter, and the definition of what are the conditions, if essential or not, to the consequence of that contract. But let me also spend a few words on the identification of the parties. You see, the identification requires obviously not only the name and surname of the person who is signing the agreement, but also other elements that can identify that party or person if a third party has to interpret that contract. So it's useful to put email address, and other elements that can easily identify the party. Now, when we say signature, that is also an essential element because it's the final manifestation of will that what is contained in the written agreement is acknowledged, accepted. It's the manifestation of the will. And obviously, on that same piece of paper, there has to be the two signatures of the two parties who are binding themselves according to the terms and conditions contained in that agreement. We will talk much more thoroughly about essential elements of the contract, but in movie contracts, it is important to focus your attention to when the money comes in and when the money comes out, because based on those terms, there is more or less control over